All right. My name is Marian Krumkowski, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Leelanau County. And if anyone in the county doesn't think that septic systems is an issue of concern, look around this room, where I think we're maxed out at about 100 folks here, and maybe still a few are coming. So thank you all for coming here today. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan but political organization that works to encourage informed and active participation in government. We attempt to study major public policy issues, educate the community, and then hopefully influence public policy at the local, state, and national level. We never ever support or endorse political parties or candidates, but we are political in that we take positions on important issues. Men and women who are age 16 or older are able and eligible to join the league. The dues are $60 a year or $90 for a household, and there are some scholarships available for those who can't meet those dues. Brochures are available at the table as you enter. Take a brochure or go to our website, LWVLC.org, to find out more about the league, how you can join, donate, and stay informed. Today we host a forum on the risks of septic systems. The League's Energy and Natural Resources Committee has compiled a panel that will address many things we need to know about this topic, but often not a topic that not often many want to talk about or even think about. Tricia Denton will be our moderator. She is a member of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee for the League. This panel program will end no later than 1:15-ish. We started a little bit late. We will then take a short break and then only have a 30-minute business meeting. We're trying to consolidate the times of our forums and also the business meeting. So individuals, if you choose to stay for the business meeting, hopefully will be able to be done with your activities here at the League no later than 2 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Again, welcome. Thank you everybody for coming out on this beautiful fall day. I'd much rather be outside, but this is important stuff, so we're here. I just to get people warmed up on the topic, I'd like to know how many of you know whether or not you have a septic tank. All right, or sewer, or a holding tank. And how about your neighbor? Do you know what your neighbor has? Okay. Do you, how about your water? Do you know what's in your water? Do you know what's in the water that you drink, the water that you swim in, the water that your kids swim in, the water that your grandkids swim in? Important questions that I think matter to all of us, regardless of our personal property rights. To get to the issue why we're here today, most on-site septic systems in the state of Michigan are never inspected again once installed. Michigan is the only state in the nation without uniform standards for how on-site septic systems are sited, designed, built, installed, and maintained. Public health officials in Michigan believe reported septic system failures represent only a fraction of the total number of failures statewide, and many go undetected or remain unreported for years. In most counties in Michigan, after a system is built, the counties do not follow up to make sure those systems are functioning properly. Because this important follow-up is non-existent in most places, it creates a potential threat to public health and water resources. To further support this point, as recently as June 2015, brand new research was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America. The study, conducted by Michigan State University, used microbial source tracking tools to show that pollution arising from septic systems discharges is likely much more severe than previously realized. Results suggest human fecal contamination. They did differentiate between human and non-human fecal or E. coli and other bacteria contamination is affecting 100% of the 64 rivers that were studied in the Michigan's Lower Peninsula. What do we do about that? There's an excellent report put out by the Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council, which anyone can access at watershedcouncil.org. You'll be able to reread this introduction that I read you, as well as different alternatives that watershed looked at around the country and around the state for what communities are doing to help address this issue. Some of those things included most of what Michigan does, which is maintaining the status quo, maybe trying to educate people about what a septic system is, how do you properly care for it, maintain it, how it has the potential to impact you, your neighbors, and the environment. Another option that some communities have adopted is a time of transfer or point of sale ordinance, which requires an inspection at the time that a property is transferred. This can catch some of the lower hanging fruit if a property is transferred, and it's viewed as a kind of easy first step way to get people used to the idea. Other types of programmings that exist are mandatory inspection programs with all kinds of different ways that communities have adopted to do that, with an initial starting out where if someone could show that their system had been inspected within the last 5 years, they were exempt from the initial inspection, but they had every system in their community inspected, and then every 5 years after that, you were required to re-inspect, with then recommendations made based on what your inspection found for taking care of your system. Some of those were on 5-year rotations, 3-year rotations. Some of them were customized depending on the type of use for a property. But there's options for that. And there's also, they found that there were federal and state dollars available to assist people if they needed to replace a system. They could either access direct funding or low interest loans to help support that. And then there are other communities that did mandatory pumping ordinances where they required that across the board people be pumped whether they needed a pump out or not. There are issues with that. Over pumping your system isn't healthy for it either. So that's just to get you warmed up. We have 3 outstandingly qualified people here to talk about different aspects of our community and how those systems work. We have Tom Fountain here from the Benzie-Leelanau District Health. He's in charge of the Environmental Health Division. He oversees a program in Benzie County that Benzie County has adopted, which is a time of transfer or point of sale ordinance. He can speak to that and other general environmental health issues. We also have Joe Williams of Williams Pumping here today. He's been in the industry for over 30 years and served on state boards. He's got a wealth of experience and knowledge to share with you today, as well as Nick Flazanis from the Lake Leelanau Lake Association. He is the president of the Lake Association and also part of Leelanau Clean Water, as is Tom Fountain. So I'm going to give each of them a chance to speak for a little bit. We'll have time at the end for questions. And then, of course, we have some optional action steps that we are going to invite you to take so that you can be a part of this solution for our community. I'm going to turn it over to Tom.
Thank you for having me, folks. Hopefully you can leave the room today with a little more knowledge regarding septic tanks and where our water goes. I'd like you to make sure you go home with one of these informational packets I prepared. It's got some basic information to take care of your drain field and your septic tank, and some things to do, not to do, so it's worthwhile keeping this on your refrigerator until it's sunk deeply into your brain. On the back side, ironically, is a declaration from our governor. Hot off the press, the governor has proclaimed next week Septic Smart Week for Michigan, and it's an agenda that the CDC and the EPA across the country are trying to promote awareness of septic systems in our country, not just here. Most of the Americans live on properties that have septic systems, especially here in Michigan. So the sewer is not coming. The sewer is in your backyard, so we need to be aware of that. And on my opening statement there in my packet I prepared, the water that's going down your toilet, somebody's drinking that down the road. It's part of our water cycle. Sewage and wastewater is the water cycle. So we need to do our best to keep that cycle clean for our great-grandchildren. And my brand-new granddaughter was born last week. And we needed to be smart and proactive. I always tell people, it's cheaper to keep a problem from happening than clean up and pay for the problem after it happens. And that's true with any pollution. It would have been cheaper to prevent it in the first place. We are sitting on the world's largest freshwater reservoir, right in our backyard. That's the reason I live here, and probably all of you too. Our water is so clean, it's pretty safe to probably drink out of it most days. We do our E. coli testing at our beaches, and most of the time there's 0 E. coli in our surface waters. That's remarkable. Parts of the state can't say that. I wanted to make a statement regarding this statewide code and uniform code. Michigan is not a one-size-fits-all state for septic systems. You're fortunate to have a county and district and region that was proactive back in the early 70s that created a very strong, environmentally focused code. Our code, which requires the 48 inches of soil, dry soil, before the water table to place a septic system is a big deal. There's parts of Michigan that's only 18 inches or a foot. So when you read the statistics and the articles regarding Michigan performing poorly when it comes to septic systems and not having a statewide code, we're not part of that. But we still think it's important to have some uniformity, but local control is what's important locally. What we do here in Leelanau County is different than what they have to do in Saginaw County or Monroe County. It's a different animal down there. But what we do here is important for the whole region. So please, like I said, read these items that I've discussed here briefly. And if you have any questions, what you should do or shouldn't do, call your sanitarian at the health department, either in Benzie if you live there or Leelanau. We've got 2 inspectors there daily. The key is knowing where your septic tank is, being aware of it, what you're flushing down the toilet. One of the new concerns, and one of the biggest concerns worldwide, is pharmaceuticals. Our bodies don't metabolize all those medications, so they end up in the waste stream. And we really can't do much about that because we need those medications, but it's the extra pills that we have left in our medicine cabinet. That stuff can't go down the drain. It ends up in our environment. If you want more information regarding Septic Smart Week, on the bottom of the page, it's Septic Smart Week. If you just Google that, everything that you want to know about septic comes up. Really good information. There's a 10-page declaration. It's a memorandum of understanding that they've provided to go along with Septic Smart Week. So you might want to just, for fun, go through what they're saying to do next week. Each day has a different task. It's described in the memorandum of understanding. They got some funny little slogans: protect it and inspect it, think at the sink, don't overload the commode, pump your tank, Joe, don't strain your drain, shield your field. So they've used some quirky, kind of catchy things to get people's mind focused on being aware of their septic system. So the last thing I would like to discuss is, the Leelanau County's proposal of a point-of-sale ordinance. I personally think it's a proactive move, and more counties and townships should be doing this. There's value to it. It's not a huge cost in the big picture of things. Like I said, we need to protect our water for future generations. And we see things out there that a lot of homeowners weren't aware of or didn't even know existed, and we can point those things out at a point of sale. So not only does the buyer benefit from it, but the seller gets educated, and they're probably buying another house that has a septic system as well. So it's win-win for everybody. We see lots of problems with people's drinking water systems, so any kind of ordinance, if it's adopted here in Leelanau, needs to include the drinking water well as part of that. It's public health. It's the same water, so we want to make sure we include that if something is adopted here. I can tell you that we've seen lots of improvements in Benzie County from our ordinance, which was adopted in 1990. So 27 years we've done this down in Benzie, and successfully. And our program we have there is looked at as a model program in Michigan. The governor's proclamation for Septic Smart Week is part of the agenda in Lansing to get a statewide code adopted. He's putting pressure on the MDEQ to come up with some type of language for this point of sale, or not point of sale, excuse me, the statewide code. In that, though, is point of sale and mandatory routine inspections of septic systems. There's been several attempts in the past to get a statewide code, and they've all failed. Again, local control is the best, I think, but we would support, the health department would support a statewide code if it addressed the things that I feel are important for my district. And some of the proposals in the past would not benefit our county. Just to kind of give you a little bit of history on that. There's the DEQ is meeting with stakeholders in Michigan regarding the statewide code, although my forum and my colleagues are not part of the stakeholder group yet for whatever reason. So, you know, not everything in this agenda is always good, but it is on the pay table, and you may be seeing more about this in the next few months. So it's, like I said, it's the Plawecki bill that was out 2 years ago was basically shut down because Plawecki was killed, or she died from a heart attack, so the thing was tabled. So they're looking for a sponsor right now in the legislative branch to introduce some new language towards that. So does anybody have any questions for me before I let you talk to Joe? We're available at the department for any questions pertaining to septic. That's what we do. I'm an educator more than anything. Yes, right here, please.
I do have a question I noticed on your list.
Mm-hmm.
Do not connect roof drains, sump pump, or water softener to sewer system. We have a septic, and we have a whole house water softener, which obviously that water is gonna be going into our septic.
No, the recharge though, when it recharges, that wastewater is not sewage. It's not polluted. That can go out onto the ground, or people typically will put in a small crock with stone to get that water out of the septic tank, because it's unneeded water in the tank.
Okay.
The septic tanks and drain fields are designed for average daily water use on a home. Anytime we can keep water out of it, the better off we are.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're gonna hold questions till the end, if
Oh,
that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. We're all so excited about this topic. I'm gonna let Joe get a chance to talk to you for a little bit.
Good job, Tricia.
It's great to see so many people here interested in septic systems. Puts a smile on my face. There's a lot. I could talk for probably a week. If somebody asked one question, I'd probably talk for a day on giving one response. But there's so much that's happened. In 1983, our business started. My father started it, and then in 1993, I got involved. Almost 25 years ago, and didn't really know a whole lot then. And back in 1993, a 20 or 30-year-old system that I was servicing was from the 50s and the 60s, and there was a lot of pretty old antiquated stuff out there. Fast forward to 2017, a 30-year-old system's from 1987. Very modern. We've got pretty strong health code here for installation. So the systems that we're seeing installed and have been installed the last 20, 30 years locally are really good, solid systems. And we used to say, a system would last 20, 25, 30 years. Well, now we're seeing where systems can last 40, 45, 50 years, or possibly indefinitely with proper maintenance, proper installation and design, good soils. But there's variables, and there's so much that changes from township to township, from home to home. We'll sometimes pump a septic tank for one neighbor, and the neighbor next door wants to have theirs done, and they do it the same time every 3 years. One's loaded up with heavy solids, the other one looks pretty good. And so there's always competition, like, why is yours worse than mine? But everybody's behavior is different. So we're contributing in a different method. The biology is different, the products we use in our homes, the foods we eat. And things have changed over the years too. Our systems have gotten larger because we're contributing more. We're putting more of a load on our systems. But so awareness is really key in understanding where your septic system is number one. Someone buys a house and they're like, well, what should we do? Well, first thing, let's go find out where it is. Let's open it up. Let's look inside it. I compare stuff to a car. You know, you would open the hood once in a while. Let's say you drive 3,000 miles a year and you were going to change oil every 3,000 miles. You probably would open the hood at least every couple of months or so often and look into the engine compartment to make sure things are functioning properly. So there's rules of thumbs on maintenance, but the first thing is to know where stuff is at, understand what you have, understand what the limitations of that system are, what it can handle on a regular daily basis. You know, we call it long-term acceptance rate, how much gallons can go into that system on a daily basis. And it's not just the gallons going in, it's the strength of the waste going in there. A restaurant with a lot of heavy grease consumption versus a residential home, per gallon, the strength, they measure it in BOD, it's a measurement of how much oxygen it takes to break down that waste. It's a lot stronger. So from home to home, it can vary. So there's not like a specific rule that if yours is getting serviced every 2 or 3 years, this one needs to be the same. Everyone's a little different. But so awareness is key. There's so much information on the internet today. If everybody goes home, everybody's got the internet. Google the septic tank 10 commandments. Boom, it's going to tell you thou shalt not pour grease down thy drain. I mean, it's going to give you the 10 most important things you can do to take care of your system. In maintenance, you know, this is kind of what they're talking about, you know, operation and maintenance, you know, so that's kind of our specialty. Over 30 some years, we've probably serviced 15, 16, 17,000 different homes in this area, and many of them multiple times. You know, we're back every 2, 3, 4 years. But we do find a number of people that will have a problem, they'll get serviced, and then they don't call you until they have another problem. And that's where the awareness really needs to kick in. You may not need to have it serviced every 2 or 3 years, but be aware of it, check it out. And usually what we see at forums like this are people that are concerned, taking care of what they have. We see a lot of the lake owners, property owners, people around the water really, you know, Glen Lake is a big one. Every time they have their annual meeting, the phone starts ringing, people start calling, you know, so. You know, and a lot of people always ask, well, how often should you pump your septic tank? And I'll say, well, every 2 weeks would be great, you know, 3 weeks. But then I go, no, really. It's not necessarily a rule of thumb. You really need to open it up. You could go in there and measure your accumulation of material. That tank is a big filter. We're filtering out all that material coming from your house, goes into that tank, separates out, the liquid effluent goes to your drain field, and it's the treatment process taking place all along the way. A lot of treatment's taking place in the tank, a lot of treatment takes place into the soil when it hits the drain field, and then as it filters down, it makes its way back to the water table, and eventually, like Tom said, we're drinking what you flushed today, someone's drinking that water, you know, weeks, months, years down the road. So when I first started pumping, it was like we were just mechanics. You know, we were just going out, cleaning it, solving problems, and then we started learning. Well, it's a bigger picture. Lake Michigan is right next door. That's really important. And you know, one of the things I thought when I was younger is like, if we ever got in a war, who would ever come up here and bomb us up north? We're nowhere. But we're by the world's biggest freshwater supply in the world here, and this is probably one of the most critical things that we need to take care of. I was in Colorado last week on a 1,700-mile motorcycle trip, and we ended up at the Grand Canyon in the Hoover Dam, and we're on motorcycles driving in 105-degree weather. And I realized that was probably the biggest bell went off in my head on how important water was. There was a couple of times on the road where I didn't think I was going to make it because we didn't have enough water. We were pulling over constantly looking for fresh water. And you know, we've got it right here, so we really, really need to be taking care of that. So. But, you know, questions, you know, when people have questions, I can really relate to giving some good answers. So I'll just pass on here and, you know, field any questions once we get to the Q&A. Thank you.
And next we'll hear, like Joe mentioned, lakes in our county are a critical issue, and Nick has stuff to share about that for you.
Let me first start out by saying thank you to the league and to the Leelanau Clean Water for hosting this. And thank you all for being here. This is a critical issue for all of us. 3 years ago, when Elaine and I moved to Lake Leelanau, I didn't even know what the word riparian meant. Well, I tell you what, since then I've had an education. 3 years on the Lake Association, a stint of 2 years on the Leelanau Township Sewer Commission. Taught me a lot about what's going on in this county of ours, which is a splendid county of ours. The water is so important to all of us. I want to thank Marion, where's Marion, for her article in the Record Eagle. Excellent article on this issue. We have several commissioners in the audience right now. Ty Wessel. Tony, where are you at? Ty came to us with an idea to have a meeting to address just starting a committee, that's all, to study this problem. We sort of strategized that, went before the commission, and it was voted down 5-2. Amazing. So what I'm talking about now is change and education. Clean water is moving, and how many of you have ever been to a clean water meeting? More of you need to come to these meetings. Important things are being discussed there about your water, the watershed that we all live in and have to protect. Your lake associations are your first defense in protecting your lake and water. How many members of lake associations are here? Well, I got news for you. The rest of you need to join. We need your help. The 4 lakes in our region, Lake Leelanau, Lime Lake, Traverse Lake, and Glen Arbor. Their association is, I'll tell you, very powerful. Is Rob Carner here? Where are you, Rob? He's their watershed biologist. Wayne Swallow is our lake biologist. Both of these gentlemen spend a lot of time on our lake doing water quality, as does the band and the Watershed Council. That report that was mentioned by the tip of the mitt, you can get it online, print it out, or read it online. This shows you who has done things to protect their lake. Lake Charlevoix, Long Lake, have done pretty amazing things. And Benzie County had the nerve to put an ordinance in place. Unfortunately here in Leelanau County, we seem to be kicking this can down the road. But if you haven't gotten this piece of information from the county clerk, get it. Because on the very front page is every commissioner, and it's got their email address, it's got their phone number, it even has their household address. Guess what you all have got to do? You got to start calling these guys. You got to attend the meetings. I attended the meeting and spoke out with, I think, 3 other people. That was it. And it went right over there. There's not a problem here. Our water's clean. Well, it may look clean, but why do you think it looks clean? Come on, you all know what it is. Huh? Well, sand is a part of our geology. Yes, that helps. But the zebra mussels have cleaned our lake up. That's why there's no freshwater clams in our lake. So we all need to be disciples. This group needs to be the disciples that go out and talk to these commissioners and talk to them that we need some form of either, if you, I know that's a dirty word, point of sale. And I know the property rights guys go berserk when they hear that, but I got news for them. They don't have a right to pollute our water. If you're a riparian, it doesn't give you a right to pollute our water.